Picture the scene. It is approximately 170,000 years ago. You are an early human, perhaps not quite the polished specimen you see in the mirror today, but a human nonetheless. You stir from sleep, stretch your aching limbs, and gaze out across the vast, shimmering expanse of the African savanna. The sun is beginning its ascent, turning the tall grasses into a sea of amber. You think about many things: the hunger gnawing at your belly, the lingering threat of the leopard that prowled near the camp last night, or perhaps the distance to the nearest waterhole. But at absolutely no point during this prehistoric morning do you think to yourself, do you know what would really tie this look together? A nice pair of trousers? And yet, here we are in the modern age. Billions of us wake up every single morning and perform the ritual of putting on trousers, skirts, or perhaps that peculiar garment that is technically a pair of pajamas, but which you've been wearing for 72 hours straight. You call it loungewear now, don't you? It sounds more intentional, more like a lifestyle choice rather than a slow descent into sartorial apathy. Clothing is so fundamentally baked into the human experience that we have actually made it a criminal offense to exist without it. If you decide to stroll down the high street in your birthday suit, the state will physically intervene. We have constructed an entire global legal system around the singular concept of, please, for the love of God, put some clothes on. We are a species defined by our laws regarding public nudity. But why? How did we get here? And more crucially, why did we decide to wrap ourselves in fabric when virtually every other creature on this planet looked at the concept of a cardigan and said, no thank you. Your dog doesn't wear a waistcoat. Wolves are quite content with their lot. The African elephant, a creature objectively more intelligent and emotionally stable than most people you encountered in secondary school, has never once thought, I could really do with a waterproof Mac for this monsoon. The short answer to when we started this is that we don't exactly know. The long answer, however, is far more compelling, deeply strange, and involves a parasitic hitchhiker called the louse. And before you recoil in horror, let me reassure you, it is every bit as disgusting as it sounds. But stay with me, because the story of the louse is one of the most brilliant pieces of evolutionary detective work in the history of science. Let's travel back to the fundamental mystery, the naked ape problem. Humans are an anomaly. We are essentially the only large mammals on Earth that are almost entirely hairless. If you look at this from a purely zoological perspective, it is profoundly weird. Gorillas, fully clad in fur. Chimpanzees, covered. Bears, lions, wolves, horses, even the hippo and the rhino have more going on than we do. Across every conceivable climate and environment, animals are walking around in permanent, full-body coats. And then there's us, standing in the middle of all this rich biodiversity, looking remarkably smooth, slightly patchy, and weirdly pink in places. We sport an evolutionary aesthetic that screams, I used to have a lovely fur coat, but I made some questionable life choices. Evolutionary biologists have wrestled with why we lost our fur for decades. The prevailing theory is the thermoregulation argument. As our ancestors transitioned from the shaded canopies of the forest to the scorched open grasslands, they became endurance hunters. To catch prey, we didn't need to be faster. We needed to be more persistent. We ran them into the ground. But thick fur is a catastrophic liability when you're sprinting for miles under a midday sun. You would overheat, your core temperature would spike like a broken thermostat, and you'd collapse from heat stroke long before you caught dinner. From an evolutionary standpoint, dying of a fever while hungry is the ultimate failure. So, over hundreds of millennia, we traded our fur for something far more efficient, 2 to 4 million sweat glands. We are, quite literally, the world's most elite sweating machines. We are professional-grade, world-class moisture emitters. If there were an Olympics for perspiring, humans would take every gold, silver, and bronze medal on the podium. This is a magnificent biological hack in the sweltering heat of the savanna. It is, however, considerably less magnificent when the temperature drops to 40 below zero and you're trying to survive a Siberian winter with nothing but your wits and a sharp rock. This is where clothing enters the narrative. But here's the twist. Warmth probably wasn't the original motivation. The conventional story we tell children is simple. Humans left Africa, encountered the biting chill of the north, got a bit shivery, and wrapped themselves in mammoth skins. It's clean, it's logical, and it makes perfect sense. The only problem is that the timeline is completely wrong. Genetic evidence, which we will dissect in a moment, suggests that humans began wearing clothes between 100,000 and 170,000 years ago. Yet, modern humans didn't migrate out of Africa in significant numbers until about 70,000 years ago. If clothes were merely a response to the cold, why were we wearing them tens of thousands of years before we ever stepped foot in a cold climate? There was something else happening, something social, something that speaks to the very core of our identity as a species. But to understand that, we have to talk about the lice. Researchers at the University of Florida decided to map the evolutionary history of the human louse. To understand their breakthrough, you need a quick biology lesson. Humans host two distinct types of these parasites: head lice and body lice. Head lice are the ancient residents of our scalp hair. Body lice, however, are a different beast entirely. They don't live on your skin. They live specifically in the seams, folds, and fibers of your clothing. They are genetically distinct populations. This is the crucial bit. Body lice cannot survive on a naked human. They need the fabric for shelter and to lay their eggs. Therefore, the moment that body lice genetically diverged from head lice is the exact moment humans started wearing clothes consistently enough to create a new ecological niche. When the geneticists crunched the numbers, they found the split happened somewhere between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. One of the most universally loathed creatures in human history, the bane of primary school teachers and the ruin of camping trips, accidentally became a biological archive. The lice knew we were getting dressed before we did. They were there, they adapted, and they moved in. It is a thought that is simultaneously beautiful and utterly skin-crawling. So, if it wasn't the cold, what was the initial point of clothing? Theory number one is basic physical protection. Not from the frost, but from the environment. If you spend your life trekking through waist-high yellow grass, thorny scrubland, and jagged volcanic rock, your skin takes a beating. A basic wrap or a loincloth made of hide creates a vital barrier against scratches, insect bites, and the blistering sun. It's not glamorous, but it kept early humans from getting infected by every stray bramble they brushed against. Theory number two, however, is far more fascinating: social signaling. Humans are obsessively, pathologically social. We are consumed by hierarchy and the need to communicate who we are. We signal our status, our tribe, and our intentions through every possible medium posture, facial expressions, and hairstyles. There is evidence that our ancestors were using pigments like red ochre for body decoration as far back as 200,000 years ago, long before the lice tell us we were wearing clothes. We were painting ourselves before we were dressing ourselves. The jump from painting your skin to wearing a specific animal hide isn't a large cognitive leap. Once you put on a skin, you start making choices. Is it a leopard skin? Did I kill it myself? Does this fur make me look more formidable? This was the birth of the fashion industry. A small band of Homo sapiens on the African plains arguing over who had the best-looking pelt. As we move forward to 50,000 years ago, the archaeological record shifts from draping to tailoring. We start finding bone needles. Not just crude awls, but delicate needles with tiny, bored eyes for threading sinew. The oldest known needle, found in the Denisova cave in Siberia, is a masterpiece of prehistoric engineering. Carved from the hollow bone of a bird, it is polished to a fine point. This wasn't just survival. This was design. This was someone imagining a tool, calculating how to bore a hole without snapping the bone, and using it to create fitted, layered garments that sealed in heat. In the depths of a Siberian glacial winter, this needle was more valuable than gold. Without tailored clothing, you don't just get uncomfortable, you die. And we weren't the only ones doing it. Neanderthals were also master hide workers. We found their specialized stone tools designed for scraping leather and evidence of them processing skins with remarkable sophistication. They were stockier, better adapted to the cold, but even they knew that a well-made coat was the difference between extinction and survival. This leads us to a profound realization. Clothing isn't just a human thing, it's a smart primate in a harsh world thing. If clothes were purely practical, every culture would have eventually settled on the single most efficient design for their climate and stopped there. But we didn't. We made clothing a language. In every culture across history, clothes have carried a symbolic weight that transcends physics. Priests wore garments that differed from warriors. Kings wore colors that were forbidden to the peasantry. We buried our dead in specific finery for the journey to the afterlife. We found textile fragments from tens of thousands of years ago that were already dyed in multiple colors. Someone, in the middle of a struggle for basic survival, decided their wrap needed to be purple or red, not to stay warmer, but to say something, to broadcast an identity. I belong to this tribe. I hold this rank. I am mourning. I am celebrating. I am dangerous. No other animal does this. A peacock's tail is a biological fixed asset. It cannot choose to look modest for a funeral. But we can. We use our second skin to construct a narrative of ourselves. Between 120,000 and 70,000 years ago, the Earth plummeted into brutal glacial cycles. The human population crashed. We came terrifyingly close to vanishing forever. Perhaps only 10,000 of us remained. The survivors were the ones who had mastered the needle, the thread, and the art of layering. We didn't just evolve bodies for the world. We engineered an environment we could carry with us. Eventually, we moved from hides to woven plant fibers, flax, wool, silk, and cotton. We built empires on the back of the textile trade. The Silk Road reshaped the map of the world. All of this because a hairless ape felt a bit exposed and a bit ambitious. So, why did we start wearing clothes? We did it for every reason at once. For protection, for warmth, for survival, and for the sheer, vanity-driven desire to look better than the person standing next to us. You are participating in this 170,000-year-old tradition right now. Whatever you are wearing, you made a choice this morning. Consciously or not, you decided how to present yourself to the tribe. You are doing exactly what your ancestor did on the savannah with a bit of ochre and a piece of hide. You are signaling. We get cold, we get creative, and then we spend the rest of our lives complaining that we have an overstuffed wardrobe but absolutely nothing to wear. Some things, it seems, are truly universal. Tell me, if you had the choice, would you abandon it all and return to the freedom of the naked ape? Or is the second skin too vital to who we have become? Let me know your thoughts. Until next time.